Hi, I'm Russ Reed, and I'm the co-principal investigator of InnovATEBIO, which is a national center for biotechnology education based out of Austin Community College in Austin, Texas. And we're delighted this afternoon. We're doing a leadership interview with Dr. Linnea Fletcher, who's our principal investigator. I'm also joined on this call by Dr. Thomas Tuban out of Madison Community College and Purnima Rao out of Austin Community College. Tom is my co-lead on Goal 3, which is really oriented at the workforce. And one of the key things that we need to establish out of Goal 3 is the Leadership Institute. Backing us up today is Sean Killebrew, who is our technician from Forsyth Technical Community College. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Russ.
Dr. Fletcher, you are the principal investigator of this new national center. This Leadership Institute is very important to the center. Can you give us a little bit of a bit on your background at Austin, and also the InnovATEBIO grant?
Okay. Well, actually, I'll even start a little bit before the community college. I was actually trained and educated to be a researcher, a scientist in the field of molecular biology and biochemistry. But when I was given essentially I had to make a choice between education and research, I decided on education. And that's when I joined the community college, because I knew I could make a difference there in education. I started the biotechnology program about the same time I actually got a grant, or was part of a grant, was the first center in biotech education as funded by the National Science Foundation. It was known as Bio-Link. And I started my program, and I also got a grant to start high school programs that interfaced with community colleges in Texas. There's nothing like doing three things at once, especially if they could be synergistic. I have to admit, the idea of making science, especially biotech, interesting to students became very important to me, because I felt like everybody needs to understand that science is an important part of their life. So during this time, after starting the program, I also then did a rotating position at the National Science Foundation, where I even learned more about how these center grants worked. And when I finished that rotation after 2 years, I eventually had the opportunity to write and start our own center grant after Bio-Link expired. And this is built on Bio-Link. And InnovATEBIO is the result of that. And it was funded October 1st. And the importance of this grant is to serve the biotech community and to build bridges between trade organizations, industry, educators, students, alumni. Essentially, we have to be the connector for all of that. And it really is based on servant leadership, because we're there to serve everybody in the community and make it work, but especially for two-year schools who have biotech programs.
Thank you, Dr. Fletcher. That's a very insightful answer. I want to just ask you a little bit how InnovATEBIO functions.
Well, the basis for that is it's not a top-down organization. It's really a grassroots, in that we ask the community what it needs, essentially, to educate students for industry. And we ask industry what they want for an employee. But at the top is the center, and we're able to see possibly broader than an individual within the community, is that we have more links to other centers and other organizations. So it's kind of like this two-way street. It's very synergistic, but we do keep track of what the community is telling us, and that's prime importance. And that's how it works.
Yeah, well, thank you for that answer. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to turn the next question over to Dr. Thomas Tubon from Madison. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Russ. Dr. Fletcher, you are an incredible example for a role model for servant leadership. You have experience with grants, as you've just outlined. Your impact on a national scale is unparalleled, and you have involvement in project development. So you've been around long enough to know the environment fairly well. You know that the Leadership Institute is important. It's very important. We see the graying of faculty across the nation, with many of our folks that are retiring as a result of a loss of programs, and we're losing our leadership. In your perspective, what is the purpose of the Leadership Institute, especially because as PI for this grant, this is one of our major activities which is being funded?
You're exactly right, Dr. Tubon. We are losing our leadership. And what's even harder is that it's not going to get easier, it's going to get harder. Change is accelerating. And then with the pandemic, it's accelerated change even more. So trying to create leadership that's resilient, it's not an easy task. And that's one thing I'm really hoping that the Leadership Institute will do, because I feel since it is industry-based and is based on guiding principles of industry and how they create leadership, and they have to be resilient and they have to be able to meet emerging trends, that this will be very insightful for our faculty. It's, to me, extremely important that the leadership within the community increases, because it seems to have decreased. And people just have to accept the fact that it's not going to be easy. Plus, on top of that, community colleges are at a nexus of change, because their role is being seen as more important, but at the same time, their own leadership is also disappearing, and change is coming to the community college as they're seen as being more important. So this Leadership Institute has a lot of things it needs to accomplish for faculty.
So your perspective of resiliency and flexibility absolutely hit the right notes, and I think that we can all appreciate that.
I just want to remind people, it doesn't matter how old you get, you still have to maintain flexibility and resilience.
For the next question, I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Rao. So, Purnima.
Definitely. Thank you so much for the opportunity to ask Dr. Fletcher the next question. Dr. Fletcher, I work with you on a daily basis almost, and I have to let the group know that every day, every time I meet you, there is something I learn watching your leadership skills. And here we have the future leaders at the Leadership Institute. My question to you is, what message do you want to convey to the participants of the Leadership Institute, and what do you want them to take home from this experience?
Well, one thing I want them to take home is they're not going to absorb everything all at once. They actually will have to reflect on the experience for quite a long time, essentially years. But I hope they are able to do that, because an experience like this is not going to seem like it's going to make a huge difference unless they actually reflect on it for a long period of time. And I encourage them to do that. And the one thing is, they need to be patient with themselves too, especially when they get frustrated in dealing with situations. And just remember that time is not as important. They should not think in months. They should think in years. It took over 2 years to develop and implement and write the center grant. And Purnima, you certainly know that because you were part of that process. But we spent a long time talking with the community before we even put down our thoughts on paper. And people who participate in this Leadership Institute need to understand everything takes time, and they need to listen to all parties and be patient, including patient with themselves.
Thank you so much. I know that resonates over and over, and hearing it any number of times is always useful. With that, Russ, I hand it back to you.
Thank you, Purnima. Dr. Fletcher, very insightful. I want to compliment you on the way that you've been able to always think of people's needs. And I think one of the roles of a leader is to really understand whom they're leading. And I think that, that's very insightful. In fact, we've had several of these interviews, and this theme always comes through. So I just wanted to ask you if there was anything more that was on your mind, and you're speaking to these participants now, in terms of what is going on with InnovATEBIO that you would really like to ask them or be able to convey to them at this particular point in time.
Well, one thing I really am focusing on with the center grant is how to gain visibility for two-year biotech programs and gain visibility for the expertise for the faculty who are running these programs. This is not an easy thing to do because preconceived notions of what a community college affects how people look at biotech programs. So for me, this is one of the major things I want to change. I want industry to sing our song. And I think even through this Leadership Institute this is another opportunity to work with industry. This institute will help faculty to learn how to work with industry and learn to go and talk with them for questions like this. Too often, we only talk among ourselves and we don't go outside of that comfort bubble. So I really want people who attend this to walk away and think about how they could put themselves out of that comfort zone and talk with others about how to gain this visibility and how to maintain their programs. Nothing really worthwhile is ever easy, they say, and I think that's true. Of course, I have to say I'm really lucky to be working with the leadership team I do have. I'll put in that plug. I was very careful about who I picked.
Well, Dr. Fletcher, I want to thank you for joining us today with the Leadership Institute and InnovATEBIO. You've provided some very insightful comments. I know for one, myself, working as a co-PI with you, I've found it very, very interesting so far with InnovATEBIO, and I think that InnovATEBIO has a great future. And I think you're absolutely right. This is a unique Leadership Institute. This is not something that is duplicating what they're going to already get at their school or at their college. So I'm very, very excited about it. And I know that, Tom, I'm going to pass it over to you for final comments.
Oh, I have too many comments to share in the short amount of time that we have here. But first and foremost, Linnea, Dr. Fletcher, thank you very much for your advocacy for the biotech ecosystem and for supporting our educators and for all you've done and that we as a center will do. I appreciate your insights, and I think that our Leadership Institute and our participants are going to find your advice and your input extremely helpful and insightful. Purnima, do you have any closing comments that you would like to add in?
Oh, just that I am lucky. I am one of the newer people in this community, ATE NSF community. And it's every day I wake up excited because there's always something new happening and the possibilities are endless. And I'm looking forward to a very bright future. Thank you.
And thank you.
And I think that it's very important, Linnea and Purnima and Tom, that we do thank the NSF ATE for providing the funds. We had to win those funds, but providing the funds to have such a great thing like the Leadership Institute and InnovATEBIO.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ.
Thank
Thank you all.
And